Hi, everybody. I'm too excited today because I finally have a vendor manager with me. Everybody knows I keep talking about vendor managers and vendor management, and today is the day. So I have Carmen, I guess it's Cisneros, but I will ask her to just say it right. So this is the first time that we're meeting, that we're talking ever. We exchanged a few messages, but that's all. So it's really our very first conversation, and I tried not to ask her anything or almost anything so that everything can be a surprise. You know how I like doing this stuff, right? So, Carmen, if you have to present yourself, then what would you say in a few sentences?
Hello. So I'm Carmen Cisneros. Yes, good pronunciation. I think you're the first person ever that
Because
got
I'm close
that
to
right
you.
on the first try. Yeah, exactly.
I'm a neighbor.
And I'm a vendor manager. I love vendor management and everything that has to do with it. So I've been doing it for about 7 years now, and I live in the UK, although I'm from Spain. And yeah, I don't know. I just work for a small company at the moment in the UK, but I've been working all over Europe, and I love my life.
What a way to start, I guess. I like that. You're the first person who says, I guess, in the first sentence, I love my life. So it's great because you're a vendor manager. I totally understand it. So let's see what this means and how we got here, right? So when you studied translation, right?
Mhm.
Okay, so what happened? Why did you study translation? Why did you go into that path? What happened?
I wasn't really good at anything at school but English. So, I thought maybe English should be the thing that I should do in university. And I was thinking, maybe tourism, maybe like marketing kind of thing.
Mhm.
And then I found out about translation, and I thought, interpreting sounds pretty good. Like you always have different things to do, and it's a hard job, but it's kind of like it's always different. And I thought that's why I thought it would be really cool. I wasn't really good at it in university either. So I thought, maybe translation in the end should be okay. But I have actually never translated. So I I went to do my apprenticeship.
Mhm.
It was like an Erasmus practicas,
Okay.
and I went into Xerox, and it was a project management role. So that was it. From there, I just started working in companies, different companies, always the same kind of roles, project management or vendor management, and now this is happening.
Yeah, so I know a lot of people who did their internship in LSPs and then ended up working as project managers or project coordinators, depends on where you work and what terminology they choose, right? But I think that after that, people usually go back to their usual translation path, at least most people that I know, because I really think that to be a translator and to be a project manager, it's like the collision of two worlds because I always say you have to wear one cap for one thing and another cap for another thing because they're not even related jobs. I mean, of course, you're always working with languages at the end, but being a project manager, it's a whole other story that has nothing to do or has very little to do with language work really entails. So, how was this internship for you? And where was it, in the Budapest place or?
Oh, it was in the UK, but then they
Oh,
closed the office, and I went to Budapest.
mm-hmm.
It was okay. We did some shadowing of the in-house translators that they had at the time,
Mm-hmm.
and I just thought, I don't know, it would be cool, but I just didn't think it was my calling. However, talking to translators via email or calling, it was much more, I guess, customer service or something like that, and that's what I really liked. Talking to people and just like doing different things and meeting different people. So I just think that maybe translation wasn't my thing because it's kind of isolated sometimes. So,
Mm-hmm.
this one is much better my skills, I
Mhm.
think.
So when they told you, well, welcome to this place where we do translation, but you're not doing translation, you're doing project management. So your first reaction was, "Oh, okay, I love my life, let's do it," or was it a bit shocking?
Actually, I saw the job description. I was like, I have no idea what it says. Like, I have no idea of any of these things because my
Mhm.
parents never worked in an office either. So no one really told me like what you do in an office, like what is an email and stuff like that. So I thought it was just printing things and
Maybe
so
back in the
yeah.
day, I guess.
once you get there and everything is explained, you are like, oh my God, they actually use software to translate. Like, what? Because, in those days, also in university, they didn't use any,
Hmm.
maybe Trados
What
2019 or
are
something.
where are we talking about? In those days is when?
So I did 2008 to 2013, my university.
That was recently. Everything was pretty much the way it is already. Right.
So yeah.
I always love this moment where you're doing your project management things, and then all of a sudden something happens that you become this other thing that is even more unknown to the real world. So what happened? How was this transition?
So as a project manager, we used to have meetings with vendor managers just to talk about what is needed and how things are going and things like that. And I always thought like, I really want to try that out. I really want to try that. And they would be talking about like contracts and negotiations, and I was like, wow, that's so cool. So the next job that I got after Budapest, I said I really want to go into vendor management if I can. So luckily I could. So yeah, it was really good. That was basically the start of everything. I came back to the UK. I started this new job and I started everything from scratch because, like you said, there is nothing. There is no manual. There is no. So my boss just explained everything to me: how to recruit people, how to do the contract business, in general everything. So it was very much another world, different from what I already knew.
So basically, you were a project manager, and then you applied to be a vendor manager. That is
Yeah.
just like me. That's exactly my situation. So I worked for TransPerfect, and I thought I was gonna come back to Portugal because I was in Barcelona, and I was a project manager there. And I loved the whole thing, the interaction with vendor managers, just like you say, and also the interaction with vendors. I mean, I had them on Skype, and it was just amazing. I loved, like you say, you're the first person talking about contracts and money and all that. I'm like, well, are you serious? I want to do this. But I wasn't actually thinking about getting a job when I came back to Portugal. The idea was just to, work as a freelancer, create my own business, whatever. But a friend of mine was applying to this company where they were looking for vendor managers. And I'm like, what? No, are you serious? Are you serious? It's like, you need to come to the interview. It's going to be a lot of fun, blah, blah, blah. And so I did. And that's how it happened, right? So I was a vendor manager for 8 years. So I know
That's
what the story
dedication,
is.
people.
Yeah, exactly. So there was no vendor management department before when I joined the company. So what was your situation? Did this company that you apply for have a vendor management department already, or were you part of a team with more experience, or were you just brand new and you had to create it from scratch? What happened?
The rest of the people, yes, they had a few years of experience, but I think I was the only one, and then my boss was doing like all the finances apart from a bit of vendor management.
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't a new department, but it wasn't really developed. And I think that's something that happens every day now in the
Mm-hmm.
smaller
Yeah,
companies where there is just one person doing the job, or maybe just half a person really
yeah, yeah,
doing
yeah.
part vendor management, part accounts or
Mm-hmm.
things like that.
That's true.
So yeah, that was it really. From there, we did got to develop a bit more
Mm-hmm.
the department and just in general, the tools we were working with and just modernize it a bit. I only was there for 2 years, so it wasn't a long time, but
Mm. So then you thought, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. So after I'm done with this company, I'll continue looking for vendor management jobs.
yes, definitely. I had a bit of a break. I went to Ireland and I spent there
Hmm,
6 months, and it was so nice.
I know. I mean, for me, it was nice to go to Ireland too. I wasn't there for
um,
work or anything, so I only went for a small period, a short period, but that was really nice. So I'm always very excited when people say I've been to Ireland. I'm like, oh, because it's such a magical place. I mean, I guess just when you look from the airplane, it's already magical. That's the impression that I have. You look and you're like, oh my God, what is this? Am I dreaming? So I think it's very nice.
yeah, but
So you were
then
there relaxing, you're doing research or
yeah,
vacation?
I didn't have a job, no house, nothing. We just went around with a car around the island, so visiting people and things like that. My boyfriend at the time was into folk music, so we
Oh,
were just playing. Well, he was playing, I was watching. In most
I
pubs
know the
and
style.
yeah, I was just there drinking 6 months. Um, but yeah, so it was just kind of like a break. And then when I came back to it, I said, yes, I still want to do the same thing. I didn't want to move into project management. I did think about moving into vendor management for other industries though.
Mm.
Like procurement, purchasing, maybe
Mm.
logistics, warehouse, like administration and stuff like that. But it's just so different. It's completely different.
Mm.
So I'm not even sure that the skills that we have as vendor
Mhm.
managers for this industry can really apply unless you like totally study something else. So yeah,
And I
that's
guess,
very, very interesting as well.
yeah, but I guess from your background, and there's a love of languages there, or else you wouldn't have decided to go into that, right? So I guess I guess that's why it wasn't so obvious for you to actually go and work in another type of business. I have a lot of friends who were project managers and vendor managers and have a language background, and they once they quit their language jobs, they went into other things like chemistry and very technical things, and they seem to adjust well and like it. So maybe if you gave it a try, it's not unheard of, I think. But I understand that if you really enjoy what you do in this format, in this type of context, then it's got to be hard to go do something else in something that you don't identify with as much. So did everything go well, or were you frightened by certain situations? Were you ever afraid of, hurting people? What kind of feelings were there involved in all these years of being a vendor manager? How do you feel
Um,
about the job itself, right? And the
yeah,
interaction with
actually,
people in that specific context, because it's very specific.
yeah. It has changed a lot. So I was taught to be like, very tough with vendors and stuff like that. Negotiation has to be strict. There is no
Oh.
room for like flexibility, things like that. But then over the years, that view has really, really changed a lot. I think. And at the moment, I might be in the other side of the spectrum completely.
Really?
So it really depends on what the company guidelines is, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but at the same time, yes, you don't really want to, make someone unhappy or, do a negotiation that is like going to damage the other person. So it's really a difficult balance sometimes because you
Mm-hmm.
can see or people who are new to the industry and they don't really know how it works or like the rates, and you can see they are giving you a very low rate. I usually don't accept that. I said, maybe go and like check this resource here or talk to these people here and see what you can do. But yeah, at the same time, it is a business. So I always come from the point of view that I trust that they know how to keep their business safe in terms of money, in terms of availability, everything. And I will take care of my business or my company.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, I guess that's the most we can do.
I guess it's like people sometimes think that we go into those big LSP meetings, right? And there's like a huge monster there saying you have to eat them alive. And then we go back to our desks and we're like, yeah, let's do it. Like Uncle Scrooge kind of thing. Let's do this. Let's do this. But I think it's exactly the opposite. That's my experience, is that yes, you know what you have to do, but then you have to find it in you to also be very, creative on the one side to make sure that things go a certain way, but on the other side you have to be very flexible, and you have to be much of a person and also put yourself in their shoes and understand where they're coming from and what the story is. And sometimes it's just the negotiation doesn't really exist there, and you don't have to take it to the extreme, right? So that both parts involved still feel okay about what just happened. So it's like there was a lot of suffering sometimes when more extreme things had to be done. I guess that's how we all felt as people in the company when something a bit more extreme had to be done, and then we were like talking to each other and trying to figure out how we would even ourselves, process the whole thing in our heads, so that when we talked to vendors, resources, these are the two forbidden words, I know. So people, freelancers, so that they wouldn't feel like we were there just to give them pet news, because it's like, when do vendor managers reach out to people for documents or rate reductions, right?
I'm afraid so, yes. Or maybe
But
recommendations sometimes.
yes,
But
but there's other things, right? So in what contexts do we as vendor managers reach out to people? I guess there's other moments.
mm, well, at the moment, I think many vendor managements are also doing quality.
Mm,
So, in terms of, feedback and stuff like that. But yes, I wanted to say another idea that I got when you were talking is that, sometimes you just need to walk away. Like,
mm,
you are not going to be able to work with everybody.
mm,
If it doesn't match, it doesn't match. We move on, and you will find other clients and I will find other resources,
for
people.
sure.
So that's also something to take into account. It doesn't
Mm,
always have to be forced. If
yes.
it's the negotiation is not working, it's not working.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah.
Yeah, it's very psychological, I think, because it's like there's a lot to take into consideration constantly, right? But I really enjoyed doing it, and I think it's an experience in itself. It's not only a job, but you're not just a vendor manager, because you actually have, which is probably the very first book in vendor management that exists, or am I wrong?
I think so. I did my research before I
I
started
bet
with
you did.
it, and I couldn't find anything remotely similar. So yeah.
Hmm. So, what can we find? Why should we read it? Is it for people who have the experience of being a vendor manager? Is it more directed towards people who need to know what a vendor manager really does, but from a perspective of freelancer? Is it for from the company's perspective? So, who should read your book and take advantage of it?
So it was designed for newcomers, so
Mm-hmm.
maybe students, or maybe just people who are starting in a vendor management role. However, I found that everybody is buying it just because they need this
Oh.
kind of reassurance of
Mm-hmm.
that what they're doing is correct, which is great. um, because it's just my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
It's just my whole opinion and experience is just there. So it doesn't really mean it's always correct. It doesn't always mean that it will work for you. But yeah, there is lots of tips and ideas of how to do things and how to treat translators. So
Mm-hmm.
I also wanted to make it as a statement of like, maybe this, like you said, we are just not trying to get the cheap person as fast as possible, things like that. Is more of the relationship and how to cultivate the relationship and yeah, just work long term really.
Mm-hmm.
So so yeah, I think everybody really can buy, can benefit from it in some way or another. I would say
Mm-hmm.
even people who want to create their own vendor management department. So maybe
Mm-hmm.
CEOs or department managers who maybe just have one person and then they think like, how would it work with two people, with three people?
Mm-hmm.
Because there are thousands of ways it would work or it would not work. Um, so yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I cannot, I should have read it already, but because there's so many things to do. But of course I'm very interested, because it's, of course, content that I'm genuinely interested in. So it's like something I should do, and then we can do a book review maybe, right? So I guess those are popular too in podcasts these days. I should do it that. So then you also offer, well, since you're an expert, let's say that, then you offered, we were talking about these workshops that you offered at some point and all of these things. So what's the story with those?
So I wanted to create a, well, okay, let's start from the beginning. My idea is that everybody in the industry should know how important vendor management is.
Mhm. I agree.
For companies, for freelance translators, for everybody should really pay more attention to this role, and I don't think it's the case. So I created a company, which was just myself, as a consultancy kind of business, as a training, as a way of just showcasing what vendor management actually, how can it benefit your company
Mhm.
or your daily life anyway. So I started doing some articles on LinkedIn, and I started this vendor management group in LinkedIn as well.
Mhm.
And I just really wanted to get it out there and be like, guys, we should all meet together if we can, and then we should really, tell the rest of the industry we are here and we are important. Um, so yeah, so I started doing also some videos with trainings that people could buy, and I was doing some one-to-one sessions. This was usually with junior vendor managers maybe, or people who didn't know how quite sure how to do vendor management, and because
Mhm.
there wasn't at the time any books or any courses really that you can just buy and know how to do it. So yeah, that was it. I was doing like a lot of one-to-ones as well with
Mhm.
different companies, and that was quite enjoyable, because then I could see that, it's just not me. Everybody is feeling the same way. It's one vendor management in a whole company is just feeling isolated. They don't know if they're doing it right. They don't know if there is any other way they could do it. So it was really, really rewarding. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, I love that. Well, I have to say that I didn't feel isolated because there was a point when we were, I think, 16 in my department.
Yeah.
So yes, it was a big thing, and it was really good because, of course, we started in the brand new department, so we had the chance to talk to other people who had been doing recruitment for the company, and um, so it was really, really nice. But I do understand that it's like it's hard for a person to understand if they should apply for a vendor management role, because now all of a sudden, I think the last 2 years or so, it's when you see that companies are actively looking for vendor managers, even if they called them the 100 possible names that you can have as a vendor manager, resource manager, talent, blah blah blah. I mean, it's insane. So I've only been a vendor manager, right? So that was nothing else about the name of my role, so that was pretty clear. But how do you think that one can understand if what they have been doing and what they want to do is compatible with being a vendor manager and just applying for one of those roles?
Mm, hopefully. I haven't really checked much, but hopefully the job description will have some skills. And
Mhm.
that's the good thing about vendor management, because you cannot study it,
Mhm.
or it's just about practice. So as long as you have the skills that are needed, I don't know, Excel, communication with people, I don't know, being a bit organized, multitasking. Those are basic skills really that anybody could have. You just
Mhm.
don't need, you just need to just get into it and do it, and then you will find it also if you like it, because it's very much fast paced. You have these long deadlines, but then you need to actually meet them, you
Mhm.
know. So yeah, even if you haven't done it before, it doesn't really mean that you are not good for it, because
Mhm.
on the other side, it's probably good people who have been linguists, people who have been project managers. They could definitely give it a try and probably be successful at it.
Mhm. Yeah, I guess probably what I used the most in my experience was definitely my PMing skills. And I came from a huge company, right? So I
Yeah.
guess it was, and I again went to a huge company too. So I guess that was that for me. So in that sense, I ask, you are an active member of Women in Localization, right? So why would a vendor
Mhm.
manager specifically join Women in Localization?
Very good. Because I am the education and mentorship
Uh-huh.
manager in Women in Localization UK.
Mm-hmm.
So it has to do with all this training that I was talking about. It has to do with all this showcasing. So my role mainly for Women in Localization is to talk to students and to try to make them join Women in Localization, and also go to universities and talk
Mm-hmm.
and things like that. So it's very much similar to vendor management in the sense of like, I want all the students to know about vendor management,
Yeah.
and I want them to know about how the industry like actually works, because it's not just you go freelance, you find clients and that's it. There is so much more they could do, and maybe some people are not good as freelance. Maybe they prefer to work in a company, or maybe they prefer to set up their own company instead of just being a one person band or a team, or so yeah, that's how I kind of joined, and that's why I joined. um I don't know. So far, I think it's been really good because it's not only students, because it's translation studies usually that I go to.
Hmm.
So it's not just UK students, there is people from all over. So then they go to their hometown and they might join, I don't know, with my localization, Romania.
Hmm.
So it's also good because it spreads the word everywhere.
Hmm. I'm with you that people should know from an earlier stage, let's say not age, but stage. Because I was already pretty old when I became a vendor manager. I mean, I was probably 36 or something, or older, but I was still a young vendor manager because I was starting, right? So that's really nice. But I did meet people who did their internship as vendor managers, believe it or not. At
Oh, okay.
Transperfect. And there's definitely one person I have in mind. If she listens to me, she knows who I'm talking about. It's Marta from Barcelona. So she's really now an executive in a big company somewhere, but she definitely started as a vendor manager. So I think that that is an option that is probably not taken into consideration by many people. But I am with you that if we go and talk, because I've done that quite a few times to go to universities, talk to translation students and people who have sometimes no idea or what they can do with the skills that they have, because they are studying translation, but they might not feel like that's the right fit for them to actually do language work. So I usually go there and just have a big PowerPoint with all the possible jobs that you can have at a big LSP, for example, right? And of course, vendor manager is always one of the ones I talk about the most. So that's really, really the way I see things. I guess we're on the same page in many ways, which is very nice. We can talk more often about this. And it's true. I think we need to put the word out there that this is a great opportunity and option. It gives you an overview on the industry, the company you work for, because you always are aware of the projects that are in the company. And it's like you say, the only one that I can think of that could be similar as a job is to be a project manager, even if a project manager takes things to another extreme. But it's an overview on what is happening in your company and in the industry, and I think it's a very good position to be in. At least I loved it, and I see that you loved it and you love it too. So I guess once we do it, we'll never forget about it. It's something that stays with us. So what would you say to someone who's just looking for their internship, their first job? Do you think that they should really, really take this as an option for a future career? Because it's true that people are looking for them, but the question is, how flexible are also companies to onboard vendor managers who have no experience, right? So how prepared are they? So where do we find this balance between having people who have no experience in the industry at all but are interested in the job, and how do companies deal with them if they've never been involved sometimes with the company in general?
That's actually a good question because I think some of the jobs that are out at the moment is because they are brand new roles. So obviously they cannot put a student into it because it would be crazy. So I wonder, yeah, how much is the actual years of experience in the job description necessary?
Mm-hmm.
Really, I believe a student could do it. Just buy the book.
Oh, you
You
have
have
it there.
everything.
Show it
This is
again.
your own. This is basically everything that you need to know from start to finish.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I don't know. Do a course. I'm sure there will be a couple of courses out in a few months from Marta as well. So it's
From
really
Marta. I
much.
don't know who this Marta is. Who is she?
Uh, it's Marta Boer, and I think she's also helping in with the localization, sorry, translation vendor management group, and I know that she's working on some courses, and that she's also interested in kind of like this freelance vendor management and showcasing of the role. Um, so anyway, I think generally people in the industry are trying to just show it more and train other people and things like that. But just off the bat, I would say if you have the company's policies and the company's kind of procedures, and then you just adapt it to vendor management, it's really not that hard. And at least to start with, obviously. So the basic vendor management everyone could do, and then once you want to move forward and do more relationship based, maybe community management, those are the things that you probably need to help with. But the basics of recruiting and stuff like that is just, I think anyone could do it, yeah. And definitely students who are new to the industry, they will get all the overview, like you said, and they will also learn just the basics of the job as well.
That's what I don't agree with you. I don't think anybody can do it. Anyone can do it.
Actually,
I think
people
it's
told me,
actually,
yeah.
I think it actually is the kind of job that is so specific. It entails so much that I would say that I would be. I mean, I've been involved in the recruitment process of vendor managers, which was really an experience in itself. And I think it really worked. These people are still vendor managers after all these years. So I think so. So I do have a vision that it's a little bit more selective as a role than you, but I do understand that if you come from college, you're just open to a lot of things, and if you have someone to guide you, then it's probably still a good fit for you. But then you have to evaluate, and I've seen a lot of people hating being a vendor manager, and I've seen a lot of people not ever wanting to be a vendor manager. So I guess if your soft skills are not very developed, or if you're not willing to just be vulnerable and show yourself a lot, then it's a bit more complicated. But that's the way I see it. Maybe because I have been thinking about it a lot for long, long years. I mean, I became a vendor manager in 2014. So that was a long time ago. So yeah, it's definitely a subject that I love. And if you need me for anything, I'm here. If there's anything that I can do at all. So yeah, it was great talking to you. It was great meeting you. And I'm sure that a lot of people will enjoy your book and, really learn from it, because that's what I'm going to do too. And then we will talk about it one of these days. Thank you so much for being here, Carmen. I really appreciate it. And I wish you the continuation of your happy vendor management life. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have fun. Bye.